Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
Good. How's it going?
I'm okay.
Yeah, crazy days.
Staying busy.
Right. So you're part of the facility. You're like run the facilities at Buck, right?
If you call it running. Keeping it put
Yeah.
together, maybe, yeah.
So you're responsible for all the EVs and EV chargers and everything.
Yep, that's us.
That's really great.
Glorified janitors that we call ourselves. We
Well,
keep,
it sounds
we
like
keep
you
the
guys
lights
have,
on and the water running.
yeah. Yeah, it's not so easy these days, I guess, with everything going on.
Nope.
Couple more challenges, I'm sure, have been
Well,
added to your plate.
yeah, and people not being here and them dealing with that. It you think it'd be easier, but it's not. No,
Yeah, I imagine.
it's not. Everyday use of equipment helps, and when you put it to rest, sometimes it breaks. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I'll bet.
yep.
So you guys got like 50 chargers out there. That's a
Yeah,
pretty
40,
hefty amount.
49. I was shooting for 70.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, we were trying to put them in our upper parking lot, but didn't work out that well. So we did put them in the lower lot.
So did you do this mostly with PG&E, not with MCE?
We went with PG&E to do all the digging and the installs and everything like that. And then MCE, our guy Carlos at MCE set it all up. Then he brought in EDF, I think, or they're not EDF, uh, Power Flex, right? And there are guys.
PowerFlex. Yes.
Yes, they're the
Sorry, my
guys.
boss is like texting me here. Let me just one
That's
moment.
fine. Go ahead, take it.
Okay. Let me just call her real quick.
Saying don't talk to that mic guy.
All right. So you guys got back to you, Mike. Sorry about that. So you guys got 49 installed and they're like PowerFlex, which I've never heard of that charging network before.
Yeah,
But
that's the company.
yeah.
They work through EDU, Electricity de France, or whatever it is,
Oh,
EDU. So their parent company's EDU.
oh, okay. Cool. Well, they look super cool. I've never seen any, like they're very elegant and sleek.
Yeah, and we like them a lot. And people are already using them, so they've downloaded the app and they're currently using them.
Yeah.
So
And your rate is like, it's like 15 cents a kilowatt. Is that
yeah,
okay?
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a nonprofit. Everybody wanted them free, but
Yeah,
gonna happen.
it's not that easy.
Jace, how's it
Hello.
going?
Hi
Hey,
there.
Chloe.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Jason.
Hello.
Jason,
He's
do I
a,
know you from Marincell?
yeah, he's an intern at Buck.
How are you?
I told you, Jason, about my daughter's friend who goes to Marin Cell, right?
Mhm.
And then this is her mom.
I think, Jason, you've volunteered for some of our events, for Drive Clean Bay Area events, haven't you?
Yeah, I did want to come.
Yeah, last year we had like a ride and drive event. I recognize you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you're doing an internship now with Buck?
Yeah, it's been great.
It's awesome. I know
And-
that place is so interesting. Do you get to actually go in to the labs and check it out?
Sort of.
Hey, Mike.
He has to work
Um,
with me, so it's not that great.
Mike is, I told,
At least Mike feeds people.
hey,
That's a
Nate,
perk.
Hey,
how are you?
good. How are you?
Good. I don't realize how disheveled I look until I'm on a Zoom call and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I think that's part of Zoom fatigue. The camera's on you all the time.
Okay, so
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we have Joe as an intern for us. We should have asked him to join this call.
Yeah, should
Yeah,
have.
exactly. Send him the link if you want. He could check it out too. I don't know if he has class right now.
Yeah, I'm in class right now, so I think he might. I don't know. I'll send it to him though.
Okay, yeah, sure. He could check this out, see a little more what we're doing.
So Mike, just so you know, there's a slide where you'll pop in and talk. Okay.
No, thanks. Okay,
So
yeah, not a
You'll be
problem.
you'll be queued up at some point.
Yeah.
Problem.
Welcome, everyone. I know it's 11 o'clock. Let's see, we have about 35 people signed up for this webinar. So far, 11 people have joined us right now. So maybe we'll wait a minute or two before we get started. While we're waiting, does anybody have any questions at all? Like, we'll definitely do some Q&A at the end, but if you have any questions right now, you can unmute and ask a question if you'd like.
I got a question about the pricing structure, you know, for the meters. Is that my sort of impression is it's about the same as domestic electric costs, depending upon where you are. I mean, in terms of per kilowatt. Is that right? Am I sort of
So it's
correct?
15 cents a kilowatt. Mike, do you want to address that or?
I can address it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Simon, I think your impression is right. I don't know for certain, but I do know that 15 cents is basically the average, the national average for charging. The fee structure was set by, what is the name of the company? I'm blanking. PowerFlex, who owns the chargers. You're muted.
No, I was just going to say I was even thinking that it's equivalent to some domestic rates, like at home. I mean, I certainly we're you know, we've got solar on our roof, and our you know, we don't have any electricity rates to speak of. We only pay like $12 a month to ship power out to the grid. But I think the rates, you know, they vary depending on the time of day and all that sort of stuff. So you can look those up, but most of the providers of electricity do a really good job at making it very confusing as to what your actual rate is at any given time.
Annika, do you want me to?
Should we kick it
You
off?
want me to-
We have 20
Yeah, do you want me to
people.
introduce you?
Yeah, we have 20 people right now. It's 11:03. Let's kick it off. Some people might join
Okay.
us, you know, as we go.
Okay, well, I'll introduce you guys and then you can go from there. So I'm glad you all could join. I'd just like to introduce you to Carlene Cullen and Annika Osborne from Drive Clean Bay Area. We're excited to have them here to help demystify driving electric and to share about their preferred pricing campaign. So have at it.
Great. Carlene, you're muted. Let me share my screen here. Carlene, we can't hear you.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
My favorite thing in Zoom. Hi, everyone. I'm Carlene Cullen. I'm the founder and executive director of this campaign, Drive Clean Bay Area. And so thanks for coming today. We wanted to just share overall about what it means to drive electric, why it's important to drive electric, and then kind of what we call how to drive electric. So all of those details, and happy to answer any questions. We'll have the chat active during the presentation. So if you want to put some questions in there, also feel free. And at the end, we'll have what we call Ask Me Anything some little session where you can unmute and just talk about things as we go. So the mission of this campaign is to help people convert from driving internal combustion engine vehicles to electric. Anna, can you go to the next slide?
Okay.
And
Sorry.
where's the-
Hang on a second. Sorry, go ahead, Carlene.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember where we're at, but one of the topics we want to talk about is why it's important to drive electric. And depending on your personal situation, driving electric could be anywhere, or driving a gas car could be anywhere from about 35% to 50% of your carbon footprint. And that's true throughout California. And now in the United States, driving passenger vehicles is the largest segment of our carbon emissions. It used to be electricity generation, but the grid has become so much cleaner that transportation is now the number one issue. So you may have heard that recently the governor put a ban on the sale of new gas cars as of 2035. I was very involved in that in 2017 and 18. I was this policy advisor for electrifying transportation in California. And that was my team's number one recommendation. It was for 2030. So it's a few years off, but clearly sending the right market signals to the manufacturers, to consumers, to industry, that we know we need to leave fossil fuels in the ground, and starting with our vehicles. All right, Annika. So this is from the California Air Resources Board, and this is what's called a production look at our carbon emissions. And you can look at carbon emissions in two different ways. The way the state and internationally they look at emissions is within the boundaries of the state or of the city, what's produced actually in that territory. So it's a little bit tricky because sometimes some of the carbon emissions, you'll see some places where they have manufacturing and they're higher than somewhere like in the Bay Area where we don't have very much manufacturing. But nonetheless, throughout all of California, transportation is about 41%, and nearly 3/4 of that is just passenger vehicles. There's also a ban on medium and heavy duty trucks in California starting in, I believe it's 2030, also from the governor's office. So like I said, electricity, it's pretty amazing the shift we've seen over the past, say, 15 years to clean energy. And that's made a huge difference. And obviously, we don't want to power our electric vehicles with coal. So being able to have about 15% of our footprint just be electricity is great. All right, next.
All right. So the climate crisis and poor air quality are affecting everyone, but not equally. Communities of color are disproportionately impacted and experience the effects of climate change first and worst. And air pollution greatly impacts communities of concern, which are often located near freeways, major roads, and oil refineries. The good news is that people are starting to notice, speak out, and take action, and we still need to get the word out about how environmental and social justice go hand in hand. We're going to be doing some EV owner spotlights throughout this presentation. And I know Deepa has to hop off this meeting, so she wanted to go early. So Deepa drives a plug-in hybrid EV, which is a car with a chargeable battery and a gas tank. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Deepa, why did you choose a plug-in hybrid, and what has it been like driving electric?
I really wanted to drive EV and just to be, because, just to have a good feeling of being eco-friendly. A total EV was not a good choice for me because at home, I don't have the option of the charger 2 level, like having a 240 volts installed. And so I was kind of debating, but actually this works out so good for me because I live in Petaluma, which is like I have like a 30 miles round trip. And this car, the Ioniq gives me 27 miles. And so, and then with being able to charge at the buck. So now I don't even have to fill in gas. I'm paying a little bit more for electricity, but that's much less than what I would have paid for gas. So I can just really vouch for it and say I'm very happy with it.
Thank you so much, Deepa. So another reason for switching to electric, like Deepa mentioned, is that you can save money driving electric. So for many people, deciding which car to buy comes down to finances. I know it did for me. So this question, does an EV have a lower total cost of ownership compared to a gas car? I'm going to say yes, EVs can have a lower cost of ownership. Some reasons for the low cost of driving electric are that the battery prices have dropped dramatically in the last few years. There are government incentives for up to $11,300 for most EVs. Electricity costs about a quarter the price of gasoline. And there's no scheduled maintenance for EVs other than maybe tire rotations and like switching out your windshield wipers. For the month of November, Drive Clean Bay Area is offering a preferred pricing campaign with Cartelligent, where we'll be able to offer discounts on select EVs. So I'm going to do kind of a high level overview of the incentives that are available. So these incentives are available for fully electric cars, and you would get about half of this amount for a plug-in hybrid. And if your income qualifies, there are actually more discounts available. So first, there's the California Clean Vehicle Standard Rebate. This, you fill out an application and you'll actually receive a check in the mail for $2,000, which is really nice. There are income limits on this rebate, and it applies only to cars that cost less than $60,000. Everyone who lives in a PG&E territory can get an $800 clean fuel rebate that also comes to you as a check in the mail. And if you're not with PG&E, then your utility might have a similar type of rebate. There's the $8,500 federal tax credit in total, $7,500 for most EVs. Unfortunately, that's not available for the Chevy Bolt or for any of the Tesla models any longer. But you can also get $1,000, up to $1,000 for home charging, 30% of the cost of your electrician costs as well as the hardware cost. And then you can also get the clean air vehicle decals, so you can drive in the fast lane alone. And those decals last for 3 years, which is a reason why a lot of people decide to lease an EV, because the lease is typically 3 years. And then once the lease is up, they can get a new EV and another carpool sticker. I will be sending you guys a savings calculator at the end, so you can put in your own household information and find out which incentives you qualify for. So in addition to saving money, you'll also save time. You'll save time in the fast lane, as I mentioned, with the HOV sticker. It's easy to charge at work and at home when your car is parked for a long period of time. EVs offer low maintenance and efficiency. While there are 2,000 moving parts in gas cars, there are less than 20 moving parts in EVs. So as I mentioned earlier, there are very few maintenance visits, no scheduled maintenance visits, in fact. And oftentimes you'll get VIP parking. I understand that's the case at Buck. And And, driving electric offers just an amazing driving experience. What I really like is when I'm getting on the freeway, it's really easy to accelerate and then just easily maneuver from lane to lane because you can quickly accelerate. And then I love being able to take my foot off the pedal and then my car immediately slows down. I really care a lot about safety. I have 2 teenagers at home, and I want to make sure my cars are safe for them to drive. And with regenerative braking, that's definitely the case. Okay. And we have another EV owner spotlight. Chloe started driving electric last year. Can you tell us a little bit about why you made the switch and what your experience has been like?
Yes, hi. So I made the switch because I was driving a minivan and I was sick of driving a minivan and wanted to drive something much more fun. And to my, I was very happy to discover in my research that I lease this EV. It's an e-Golf, and I decided to lease because I realized that in 3 years the range of batteries would be much higher. So I figured in 3 years I'll get an EV that has even bigger range. For now, my range is 150 miles, which is totally sufficient for me to get to work and back and get around town. And my lease payment per month is $20 less than the amount of money I was paying in gas on my minivan. So just gas alone, like I'm spending less money on this car. So that was like a huge benefit to me. I just thought that was awesome. And I haven't gone to the dealership at all to have anything done on the car. So that's really nice too. No maintenance. So
Great.
yeah.
Thank you, Chloe. All right. So before we take a look at some of the available and coming EVs, let's talk a bit about the carbon footprint of EVs and the impact of batteries, which store the energy. Carlene?
Yes, thank you. So there are several issues around batteries we want to talk about because just like with fossil fuels, nothing is for free. There's definitely, you could bike or walk, and or take transit, which has less of a carbon footprint, obviously, than driving. But if you're going to drive, there are some impacts from the battery. So one of the things that we did was analyze from the Union of Concerned Scientists. They did a deep cradle to grave analysis of the embedded emissions, actual emissions from building and driving electric vehicles. And then they compared that against a similar profile for extraction and transportation and refining of fossil fuels. So one thing that's not included is kind of all the secondary impacts, the indirect impacts, such as, climate, heat, drought, et cetera, and the fires, the resulting fires and the carbon emissions from that. So it doesn't go quite that far, but it really is this cradle to grave for the vehicles. And so what you're looking at here is a chart. The orange is basically the emissions that are generated from manufacturing a vehicle, from a sedan to a Prius, a plug-in hybrid, and electric vehicle. The electric vehicle it doesn't look like much here, but it is a larger carbon footprint because of the extraction and production of the batteries. And if you had a high range vehicle, which you probably add there next time, I realize, because this is like a Leaf with about 85 miles. But if you double that, you'll see an increase in that battery, that one-time carbon emissions for the production of the battery. But then you can see this is just over a single year. The blue are the tailpipe carbon emissions. And you can see that, so we took the Union of Concerned Scientists data, overlaid it with MCE Clean Energy, which is the energy provider for renewable energy in Marin and in several other counties in the Bay Area. We looked at the carbon emissions of wind and solar, which are very tiny, but still there are some emissions from manufacturing of those devices. And then said, okay, on an average, somebody drives on average 12,000 miles a year. Here are the carbon emissions for 1 year. Most cars are on the road for about 12 to 15 years. So you can see that we always say there's no road to a sustainable future in a gas car. We just have to move as rapidly as possible. Okay, next. And then also we question about the batteries. So batteries all have a first life in the vehicles. There will be degradation, slow degradation. The only vehicles that had severe degradation were some of the early Nissan Leafs, that a lot of them got recalled, or it was a pretty difficult situation early on, because the Leaf was kind of the groundbreaker in this technology in the US. But nonetheless, they've made some improvements, and all the other manufacturers have not had that sort of issue. So you might see degradation where towards around, say, 10 years of life of the battery, many variables here, that you might end up with, say, instead of a 250-mile range, maybe you'd be down to a 220-mile range. So it's not a catastrophic failure where the car just stops working. It's really that you would get less range. And then once you reach a point where either you sell the vehicle to somebody who doesn't need that many miles range, or you're ready to scrap the vehicle after traditional vehicle 12 or 15 years. The batteries have a full second life, estimated to be about 15 to 20 years, as renewable energy storage on the grid. So that's in place now. So these are very sophisticated, powerful batteries. Even if they can't propel your car the range that you want, they can still have a full life on the grid. And then they move on to about 95% of the minerals are recyclable.
Okay, back to the vehicles. So there's an EV or e-bike for every lifestyle. Most fully electric EVs offer 200 to 300 miles of range, and some go even further on one charge. This means that you can go from Marin to Tahoe with just stopping for maybe 10, 15 minutes for a quick charge, and from San Francisco to Sacramento and back without having to stop to charge at all. Okay, so here are a couple of the most popular models that you've most likely seen, all available for less than $40,000. That's before incentives: the Tesla Model 3, the Chevy Bolt, and the Nissan Leaf. Carlene just drove from the Bay Area to New York and back in her Model 3 this summer. She'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. And the Hyundai Kona and the Kia Niro are relatively new to the market, released last year. They're great crossover SUVs, and they offer very fast charging. The BMW is a 4-seater hatchback, and some BMW owners who I've spoken with have said this is their very favorite BMW model. I just got a note from somebody who works at Buck. I'm probably not pronouncing the name correct, but Ik-Young Kim, not able to join us today, sent us a message that he has 2 EVs, a Hyundai Ioniq, a fully electric Hyundai Ioniq, which he uses to commute. It has 130-mile range, and he paid less than $200 a month. His lease price is less than $200 a month. So it's a really great carpooling or commuting car for him. And then he also has a Kia Niro with a longer range, like 270-ish, which is suitable for his long distance trips. And he just did a trip down to LA, and he didn't have to stop at all to charge between Santa Cruz and Santa Barbara. And he mentioned that he paid nothing for this trip. I'm not sure if he has some special deal or what's going on, but you might want to ask him about that if you see him around. And then if you're interested in, a more luxurious car, there's the all-wheel drive Audi e-tron SUV and the Jaguar I-Pace. There are oftentimes a lot of really great deals on these cars. Like the Audi e-tron was like 20% off last month. And then there's the Model Y. You may have seen that around recently. It has an optional 3rd row of seats, so you can actually fit 7 people in there. Okay. And we have another EV owner spotlight. Julie, are you on the call?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, great. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose this model and what you think about driving electric?
Sure. So we bought a couple of years ago, we had 2 gas cars that were about 10 years old. So we knew we wanted to go electric, and we were looking at various electric models. And it was really my husband who wanted to go with the Tesla. We were able to get a used 2014 and 2018. And it's been terrific to drive. I like the quiet and the quick acceleration and how smooth it is. We've made trips to, so the range is, I don't know, 280 or something. We have an in-home charger, and we're actually looking to get solar panels as well with Tesla. We've made a couple trips to Tahoe and Monterey, and we were concerned initially about whether it was going to be a hassle to make long distance trips, but it hasn't been at all. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Julie. So if you can't find an all-electric car that works for you, there are many plug-in hybrids out there. If you plug in a PHEV every night and or at work, you may be able to cover your commute driving all electric and save the gas tank for road trips. The Honda Clarity, the Toyota Prius Prime, and the Kia Niro are good choices, and they're great commuter cars because they offer a good amount of electric range. I have a friend who owns a Honda Clarity, and she's actually never put gas in the tank because it offers 47 miles. It's another great commuter car. And we have another, oh, sorry, before that. So if you need a larger car, there's the Chrysler Pacifica, which has an electric range of 33, and the newer Toyota RAV4 Prime, which is all-wheel drive and has 42 miles. And we have another EV owner spotlight. I believe Remy owns the Chevy Volt, which is no longer available for purchase new, but can you tell us a little bit about this car and your experience driving electric, Remy?
Yeah, you bet. So I bought the Volt for two reasons. So my wife and I both have plug-in hybrids. I got the Volt for several reasons. Number one, just first and foremost, just the environmental responsibility piece. Second is it's easy. Everything from the HOV sticker, which I got mine before, I guess, the Volt eclipsed 200,000 models. So that's actually huge for me. Nothing irritates me more than sitting in traffic. I don't have that time. And then I'm also the fact that this year, although I've certainly driven a lot less because of COVID, I'm still working on my second tank of gas this year. So the Volt gets 55 miles per charge. And so we have a level 2 charger here at the house. So I can get from Petaluma to the office or to the Buck and back easily, typically twice. So it's super easy. And I never have to bring it in for maintenance because the darn gas engine never turns on. So it's been incredibly easy, great. And like I said, just environmentally the right thing to do.
Thank you, Remy. So then we want to talk about a couple cars that are coming. I wrote here coming in 2021, but it looks like some of them might be out even by the end of this year. There's a Volkswagen ID4, the Ford Mach-E, and the Volvo XC40 Recharge. And there's also the Polestar, which is available to order right now, which is kind of the sports line of the Volvo. So this is pretty exciting to see.
And the Polestar gets 300 miles electric.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, we just test drove it last week and it's a really awesome, really, really great car. So then finally there's Rivian. The Rivian SUV and truck offer exciting new technology. This is an all electric company and these are their first vehicles coming out. They have great range and great utility. They're both all-wheel drive. And what's great is that Rivian answers the high consumer demand for both SUVs and trucks. And I'm just going to say this tiny thing because I think it's really cool. If you guys are into camping, that truck has this little swivel table that you can pull out behind the cab, and it has an electric cooktop. So you can do all your cooking right off the battery of your car. So no more propane. Super cool. Okay, so if you're not in the market for an EV, an e-bike might be right for you. So instead of hopping in a gas car, you might try commuting on an e-bike or running errands around town with an e-bike. E-bikes are fast and fun, and there are lots of different styles and types available. And we have another e-bike and EV owner spotlight. I've heard that Simon is quite a fan. of electric. So can you talk to us a little bit, Simon?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. I feel like I'm preaching to the converted here a little bit, but in any case, in 2017, I became like absolutely convinced electric was the way to go. And so we bought our first electric car, which was the Chevy Bolt, which is a great little car. And then that sort of propelled it. The experience with the Chevy Bolt propelled us to go, okay, we need to get rid of our last gas car, which was a Prius. And then I bought that, which you see in the picture there, which is a Tesla Model 3, which has just been phenomenal experience. I never considered myself a car person. After owning that for a couple of years, now I'm a car person. I constantly evangelize about the benefits of EV, and that goes to electric bikes as well. What you see me sitting on there is my Cannondale. Essentially, it's a gravel bike, which allows me to go off-road as well as on-road. So I commute to the Buck using that, on occasion. And, when I'm not doing that, I use the Model 3, which is just like, it's from the future. And it's only getting more futuristic with each passing year because they keep upgrading the software in it in a way which is just like unbelievable. You see on the roof behind the car solar panels, because we also decided to go whole hog in getting as much of our carbon footprint reduced as possible. And we got solar panels several years ago as well. And even that now has come down dramatically in price from where it was when we purchased that. So you can get a lot more bang for your buck if you want to go solar on your roof as well, and can further sort of diminish your carbon footprint. So we live in an incredible period of technological transition at this point. And I think the analogy has been made many times about, it took about 10 to 15 years to go from horse and buggy to automobile. I think we're in that kind of a transition zone now. Within 10 years, most ICE cars will be off the road, I hope, and we'll be in a lot more better position for a sustainable future and a long-term trajectory of success as a species.
I just wanted to add to that. Simon, I completely agree that, we're in this really exciting technology transformation. My view is that a lot of the auto manufacturers, actually almost all of the auto manufacturers, haven't quite figured out how they're going to shift to participate in that. So they're kind of dabbling in the waters a little bit with, one car, a little bit with another, of limited quantity. And Tesla's really the only one that's showing up strong and said, all right, we're in. And so I think that the, consumer demand, like that these auto manufacturers hear this and see it and say, we don't want these other cars anymore, because they're selling mostly trucks, right? Really high polluting trucks. And that this, like, people like you all who are driving electric, it's great. And, my whole thing is like, let's tell everybody. It sounds like you already do. They may be tired of hearing about it. But, really getting, I'm an e-bike rider as well. And I think that's also a game changer. Like, I would never ride my bike to the Buck without an e-bike, because getting up there.
I've done it. It's hard.
It's too hard. It's too hard. So anyway, so I'm kind of like anybody driving a plug-in of any sort, really making sure we're out there sharing this with everybody is really great and important.
Awesome. Thank you, Simon and Carlene. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how to EV, and we'll start with charging. So at home, at work, and on the road. So people get worried about charging on the road, but for most people, 90% of all charging gets done at home or at work. And you're all really lucky to have all this charging at Buck, which makes it super easy. So level 1 gives you about 5 miles an hour of charging by simply plugging into a 120 volt wall outlet. So this is a great no-cost solution to home charging. And while 5 miles an hour might seem like too little, when you think about it, overnight, you might get 40 miles. And in the Bay Area, the typical person drives only 23 miles a day. So you could typically cover your daily driving with just plugging in overnight and getting those 40 miles or so. If you drive more, a good option is to see if you can charge at work, which obviously you guys can do now. And you may also want to get a level 2 charger at home. You'll get about 25 miles in 1 hour. There are a lot of a lot of level 2 public chargers available as well. So you can charge when you're around town, running errands and such. And so level 3 charging is for charging on the road, and it's the fastest charging available. You can charge up to 300 miles in 1 hour. We're not quite at the gas station model yet, where you can stop for 10 minutes and fill your entire battery, but we're getting there. There's been a quiet revolution in charging, and many level 3 stations can charge 3 to 5 times faster than the original stations that were there. So, you know, a lot of these cars in 15 minutes, you can get over 100 miles of charge now, which is just fabulous.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment something also about the charging. So I'm not sure how many people regularly charge outside the house. My experience is that a lot of EV drivers kind of cling to their home charging. But I wanted to say something about the non-Tesla fast charging, which is that it is increased. So for everything from the Bolt to the Volkswagen, et cetera, their fast charging has increased overall from about 50 kilowatts to up to 350. Most vehicles can take a maximum about 150, which is comparable to Tesla now. So not all the stations have it yet, and not all the vehicles can accept it. But it really matters a lot when you're going on a trip, or you're just, you know, running around and you forgot to plug in that night, that you now regularly can get, you know, 100 or 150 kilowatts, which really means, you know, triple the speed, which is excellent. So we need the whole market.
Could I add to that?
Yeah.
I mean, again, we don't know what's going to happen next week, but let's assume that logic does happen. As part of the Biden plan, they're going to install 50,000 chargers across the US. So that will, again, dramatically change the landscape with regards to the potential for EVs to be adopted in a very, very aggressive way in the coming years.
Yeah, and it's actually 500,000.
Sorry, I was off by an order of magnitude. It's not often that happens.
Sorry. Yeah, and you know, we don't know yet. Anyway, we're involved in trying to put together some thinking around, you know, where these stations get placed and what's needed for these stations and the consumer experience, et cetera. Because Tesla has a closed system, so you just basically plug and charge. And that's really how the network in the US needs to be implemented. But yeah, that's really exciting and a game changer across the US if that happens.
So once you start driving electric, you can choose a clean energy plan from your utility or CCA, like MCE Deep Green or Alameda Green. So you're charging your car with clean energy from the sun and the wind. So in addition, your utility or CCA may offer a special reduced EV or time of use rate. So you pay less for electricity during certain times of the day. I try to charge during off-peak hours, which for me is midnight to 3 p.m. So which is kind of a long time. I used to set my car to charge, you know, start charging right at midnight, but I realized like we have a lot of solar energy available to us during the day. So now I've set it to 10 o'clock. So especially during these winter times, so I can really maximize the use of, you know, solar energy. And I'd like to introduce to you people who you already know, but Megan Moore and Mike Medius to talk a bit about charging at Buck.
I think Megan had to get off the call. Megan, you still there? I guess not.
Okay, it's all you.
These are our, we have 49, as everybody knows, we have 49 charging stations at the Buck. We have 20 available right now. As you see in our parking lot, we have sacks over the other ones because we're leaving available parking open to everybody else. PowerFlex is charging us 15 kilowatts an hour. I mean, for 15 cents a kilowatt. And our solar field is not connected to the EV charger. So those of you who think that it's free energy and the Buck is charging you, that's not how our system works. Our solar actually goes to Marin Clean Energy, and then we purchase energy back from Marin Clean Energy. So there is a charge for it. So that's why we have to charge 15 cents a kilowatt hour just to pay for the energy we use. I'm going to really open it up to any questions that anybody has about it. You have to Chloe has actually sent out multiple times the procedures on how to download everything and how you have to pay for it is all information on our intranet. And is that correct, Chloe?
Yes, that's right. It's not on our intranet yet, but I have sent out the instructions. And then we also there will be a brochure. I don't know if it's available yet, Mike, but there'll be a brochure at the front desk for visitors who come to Buck and need to know how to use the chargers. And I will be putting the instructions on the intranet as well. But for now, you've received emails from me with it attached.
Correct. And the other thing is we have 49, so we will be opening them as people purchase new vehicles. I think how we're going to do that is that, and Chloe, you can correct me if I'm wrong because Megan's not here. If we're going to register, if you come in and say, hey, I purchased a new vehicle, and I can't charge anywhere, then we'll pull off one of the bags and open it up as our EV cars expand, then we'll expand our charging.
Yes, I actually got a lot of responses from people who don't currently have an EV but are planning to buy one in the next couple months. So I factored that into the number that were the 20 that are open. And that also includes room for, a handful of guests as well. And so that's flexible. And as the number changes or the need changes, those chargers will get uncapped.
Can I ask a question about sort of future use in the sense that, I mean, what do you say, there's 50 of these things? Is that right?
Correct.
What about the flexibility of adding to this? Because, I mean, let's say there's some crazy adoption of electric cars over the next 3 or 4 years and 50 becomes limiting. Is there some way of leveraging this to add more, or maybe adding class 3 chargers as the demand for that increases? Because the capacity for batteries is a rapidly kind of technologically evolving target. And class 2 might not be considered very high capacity in 2 or 3 years' time, especially as some of the improvements in battery technology, particularly by manufacturers like Tesla, who may end up licensing that technology to other car manufacturers, become apparent. What's the flexibility for growth in the future?
Simon, I'm glad you asked that. When we first laid out this with PG&E, I wanted 75 units, but I wanted built to house 180. So that green monster you see out in our parking lot, that transformer, is an 850 kilowatt transformer. So I can go up to almost 200 units. It was planned to put up in the upper parking lot. So the global view has been laid for the future. We took this to heart, and wasn't just a Band-Aid. This was for the future.
Bravo, Sir Mike, bravo.
So we are planning, the original plan was to put them up in the upper lot, as you know, but we ran into digging problems, but we still kept the large transformer. So, and it's piped, as you see in back of it, for another transformer, and PG&E has another slot for it. So we could get up to 400 units. Not off of that, we'd have to pay for another transformer, but it's already plumbed with piping for future expansion.
What about the question I raised about the evolving battery technology? I mean, I don't know how many of you I know some of you probably watched the actual battery day by Tesla, where they basically laid out a roadmap for changing the energy infrastructure of the world over the course of the next decade or so. And that is going to start being materially felt in consumer products over the next 2 to 3 years. Firstly in Teslas, but maybe in other cars shortly thereafter. And those batteries appear to be able to not only store more energy, but charge more rapidly. And so again, coming back to the question of class 2 versus class 3, I mean, Tesla's already talking about 350 kilowatt an hour charging stations in the not too distant future. So this is a moving series of goalposts. Are these existing charging stations able to be upgraded to class 3 easily, or is that not easy?
Well, from PowerFlex, probably not. That's what their standard charging unit is. But if we talk to them and their technology raises, I'm pretty sure we can. As far as wiring and power, we have it. The wiring power is there. It's the mass production of the class 3, as you call it. How many cars use them? If everybody starts using them, do we have 2 and 3s? That's all infrastructure we have to figure out with them, which we have the availability of power. We have plenty of power there.
Mike,
Yes.
can you tell everybody why you chose PowerFlex? Because you explained that to me recently and I thought it was interesting and I've gotten some questions about it.
Well, a PowerFlex was we chose them first of all because they were recommended by Carlos and Marine Clean Energy. Now, Marine Clean Energy works hand in hand with EDF, Electricity de France. It's the same people that used our have installed our solar field. So we have a great working relationship with them. So Carlos is working with them. He's our, like I said, our Marine Clean Energy representative. He suggested them. They worked really well with us. They gave it to us all for free. So it's a great symbiotic relationship, I think. Is that what you were looking for, Chloe?
Yeah, but I mean, people who drive EV are like been looking at, had their eyes open looking around as they drive. They see places like charging stations like ChargePoint or EVgo. And I know you said you had like researched different vendors and
Correct.
Yeah.
And they're both their price and their tech. We don't have to pay to do anything on their maintenance. They come out and do everything with us. They do quarterly checks. If we damage something, we don't carry insurance on it or anything like that. So they were the best deal in the bunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the other companies that people see around a lot were more expensive for us. So it was a cost savings to choose PowerFlex, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Cost a lot of cost savings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty cheap, so.
Well, I think it's interesting and it's confusing as a new EV driver. It is, when I was a new EV driver, it was confusing to me to navigate all the different charging companies that you come across as you're looking, you go to charge. So, hopefully Carlene or Annika, you can demystify that, because I think that's a little overwhelming to people when they see these different machines and like how to use various ones versus other ones. And
Yeah,
next slide. So I'll let you talk about that.
Perfect. I'll address that. And I wanted to address some of the issues Mike was discussing as well. And Simon, one thing, just thinking about your charging infrastructure, I would urge you to consider maybe before level 3 charging stations or more level 2 to consider renewable energy and battery storage, because that's really where the need is on the grid. People may have larger batteries, but it doesn't mean that they're going to travel further every day. So you want to have obviously you want to have ample supply, especially for people who live in multi-unit dwelling and don't have somewhere to charge it at home. But or maybe it's not an either or, but definitely what we need for the grid balancing, for power shutdowns, is if people could come to work and know that even if they are in a PSPS at their residence, that they could come here and charge. You need to have enough chargers, but that would be, if there was battery storage, that would be really fantastic.
Now you're stealing my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
Because we're already investigating battery storage, lots of it up in the upper parking lot. We actually, I don't know if anybody's been up there, where you trench the parking lot to run cable and conduit for future possibilities of battery storage up in the upper parking lot.
Fantastic. That's
so
great.
We're looking into it.
That's great. That's great.
Here at the Buck, we're all in. We're all green here at the Buck.
Yeah, that's awesome. Most people are doing charging stations, but not thinking about storage yet. So
no, we'll take a global approach here at the Buck.
Awesome.
And before we move off of our charging station at the Buck, can I ask a question about them? So right now we have like 49 or 50 units. Are they first come, first serve? And like, as we expect more and more people to have them, and let's say we have more than those amount of EV drivers, on a daily basis, after COVID at the Buck? What would be the policy? Is it just first come, first serve, and then we got to share, or do we assign them or something like that?
So we haven't reached that point yet. I think we're at 20 open. We have 50. I think that's going to be something for the green team and Chloe and Megan to decide if we have more than 50 people with cars. If we get close to that number, I think our expansion plans are ready, willing, and able to go. I think we've already talked about expanding with EDU and PowerFlex. So those are all planned in a 5-year plan that we're having with batteries and that kind of stuff. But if we get there before 5 years, then we're going to have to figure out something.
Yeah, and I think it's an important thing to bring up, Cameron. Thank you, because up till now, EV drivers have had to charge just in the like lighting poles at Buck, and that's been first come, first serve. And then when you go anywhere to charge, it is the same thing. It's first come, first serve. So as an EV driver, you're kind of used to the first come, first serve type of model. So, but it's definitely something that should be thought through in terms of when we start expanding our EV drivers at Buck.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, some larger organizations who have maybe fewer chargers have like software systems that they use to sign up, different shifts of charging, etc. So that may be something that you guys will look at as well.
Great. So I also want to address a couple of things, Chloe, that you asked about the number. There are many EV charging companies, and the number is just going to keep growing. Right now, most of them, you have to be like a member. It's free, but you have to get a card or something or be part of Tesla. The state has passed a law. I don't recall when this will be, but all of these stations, public stations, will at some point in the next several years have to accept a credit card, just like a gas station. So that's going to be happening. And there's also a standard and ISO standards being explored, 15118, which is basically plug and charge, which is what Tesla uses right now, and that a number of auto manufacturers and public station vendors are looking into. It would have to be a handshake from the vehicle and the charging station, but it would then eliminate entirely even the credit card. You'd have that already pre-populated in your app. So those things are all coming. For now, on our website, we have a buying and driving guide. We list all the different networks, and just apply for them. Like I said, they're free, and then I just leave mine in my glove box and off I go. So charging infrastructure, if you're not driving electric yet, you wouldn't notice, or if you're only driving one particular brand, but it has exploded. There's a company, Electrify America, because of the VW settlement, had a $2 billion penalty because of Dieselgate with VW. And they set up this new company, Electrify America. $800 million has already started flowing into California for level 3 fast charging. They're only installing 150 kilowatt stations and above. So it'll downgrade to lowest common denominator to meet your vehicles, but it's built for the future as well. So as Annika said, I went across country in my Tesla Model 3. I wish I had something more to report other than it was just boring. It was so easy. And it was just absolutely no problem. I've taken my Bolt to Tahoe and Yosemite, charged once for about half an hour each. Also, once it's just becoming familiar with it. People get nervous, but if you just use an app and, it's fairly easy. And I just went to Los Angeles in our Kia Niro and full electric. And that was also, very easy. We're going to send you all this information, but many people are familiar with PlugShare app, but there's an app also that I recently discovered called a Better Route Planner. And we tested it against the Tesla in-car app about where you needed to charge, and it was more accurate. So they collect more details, and it's really just math, but they do a really good job. So we put in, basically weight in the car, what speed we were planning on going, if we were going to use AC, a couple other information points, and it was better than Tesla at calculating what stops. Like we never ran into like slow to under 70 to get to your destination. it had it really mapped out. The same with Los Angeles. So it's a free app. We're doing some more due diligence on it internally, just checking the company out more, et cetera. But if you're going and you want to just be confident you can go anywhere, anytime, I really recommend checking out that app. All right.
Can I ask about, Carlene, can I ask, when you drove across country, were there any segments or parts that you were, that were a little bit more variable or uncertain? And maybe that was local knowledge, but yeah, I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, it was things like in the middle of the country where there was like heavy wind, and didn't anticipate that, or other things like Tesla. I mean, mostly with Tesla, it's really great, but it's not perfect. It was we were traveling rather fast across 80, so it really didn't. It would recalibrate several times and have us stop earlier, whereas a better route really got it right away and had it just. It's just putting in many more details and it's showing you not just for Tesla but for the general other charging stations. It would show you also how many stalls there were and real-time availability, which Tesla shows because it's a closed system, but we're trying to advance the whole market, and this was exciting to see. Like with our Nero, we could see and it was spot on. Even figured out going over the pass into Los Angeles, it was just perfect.
Cool, great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So preferred pricing, this is our second annual preferred pricing campaign. We partnered with a local Bay Area car broker, concierge car service that many people know. They've been around for 20 years, helping people find the right vehicle at a good price. So we went to them last year and said, hey, what if we did some promotion and had people interested in these vehicles, because we're trying to advance EVs. So they went out and negotiated some discounts with the manufacturers and the dealers. And we were able to save people anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 on top of the other incentives that were another, $11,000. So, and you get their service, which is awesome. You don't need to haggle. The prices are fixed. They're going to help you. They're really your advocate as opposed to going to a dealership. So last year we helped about 120 people get into a new electric vehicle. It's not Tesla. They have their set price, but it's kind of rest of market. So it'll be select vehicles. By coming today, we're going to send you an invitation to what we call priority placement, because there are a limited amount of vehicles through this. So if you want to get a new EV or a second EV or trade in your lease and get a newer EV with higher range, et cetera, that campaign will be starting November 6th and run through December 5th. So, okay.
All right, we have about 5 minutes left, and so we're going to use this time.
Annika,
Yeah.
Danielle is on if you wanted to have her talk about her EV.
Yeah, let me see. I don't see any questions in the chat right now.
I'm just posting the name of that trip planner, a Better Route trip planner. It's free in the App Store.
Yeah, great. We're going to send you guys this slideshow as well. And this summer, we created a buying and driving guide that we'll send you, and a couple of links that will be helpful for you. But Danielle, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience driving electric? Oh, I can't hear you. Let's see.
Oh.
Yeah. Still can't hear you.
Shall I maybe ask a question? The people who respond to in chat or just take off their mic. I'm just curious, like people who don't drive electric yet. What are their barriers, to driving electric? Cameron, anybody not driving electric yet?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people on this call are actually not driving electric and are interested.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like Chris Revelo, I know you're on here, and I know one of the barriers for her was having it, if this is just your one car in your family, it feels a little nerve-wracking, or whatever term you want to use, to go EV when you don't have, I feel okay having a 150 mile range EV because I also have a Subaru. So I feel like when I go far away, I have a gas car.
Yeah.
But if you're just one person in a family and that's your only car, that's
great. So I can just pop in. So yeah, so I'm a single person, so only one car. So at the moment, I'm leaning towards a hybrid. One of my barriers is that I absolutely hate shopping for cars. So I'm exceedingly resistant. Also, because of COVID, I'm coming into the buck less. So charging at work is not the great option that it used to be. I live in a rental home, and so installing a level 2 seems like off the charts. So I've got to factor in charging at home or, going someplace locally, if I go grab something, go out on an errand. So anyway, I'm going to do it. My next car will be either a hybrid or full EV, but I'm those are some of my barriers to entering the field.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I have to say, so, having somewhere to plug in is kind of the baseline. And definitely wouldn't want to invest in a 240 volt in a rental unless you're planning on being there long term. Right, so the perfect combination would be just plugging in the wall. So my family, we started driving electric about 7 years ago, and we haven't had a gas car since, and we travel all over the place. We're obviously diehards, but in the beginning it did take being a diehard, but really in the past couple of years with the range and the vehicle charging infrastructure, it's really becoming very easy and very commonplace. But I think that combination of being able to plug in at home and then when you are at work more often, that support would be really excellent. And we always say a plug-in hybrid is the gateway drug to driving full electric, and it's a really great option for many people, especially if you can get your daily driving on your plug-in hybrid being electric. You can reduce your carbon footprint by about 65%. So it can really make a big difference. So I think if also I just want to say, like, at some point, we're running this preferred pricing campaign now, or in November, we will plan to run another one in the spring. So I would urge you to definitely come in through our system, go to Cartelligent, get a great price, and you're not going to be haggling. They're your advocate. They're going to help you find out the best car. I just bought or leased a car from them, the Kia Niro, and it was so incredibly easy. Like it was awesome. So I hope.
Carlene, I don't have a level 2 charger. I have just not gotten around to it. And so I've had my EV now for 1.5 years, and I just plug into the wall with an extension cord from the plug that's outside my garage. And it's been fine. Like overnight, I get more than what I drove, the day before. So it's not a problem.
It's really doable. We're always urging people to consider level 1 first. Like, don't install it at home, because you can, get 40 miles overnight, and that's people mostly drive like 27. And we did that for the first 3 or 4 years until we finally got 3 EVs for, our teenage drivers also. And then we finally got a level 2. But it really, and if you run out, if you have just level 1 at home and you're like, I'm getting low, you just go to a local fast charger. In 20 minutes, 25 minutes, you can have a full tank.
How much does the level 2 charger cost to have installed?
So if your panel is able to handle it and you don't need any electrical upgrades at your home, there's a lot of variables. How far from your panel to where you're going to be installing the 240 volt outlet. So you need a 240 volt outlet from an electrician to install that. That could be, $300 to $600, roughly. Then if you get some vehicles, you don't actually need a charging station now, but some you want. So that can be anywhere from around $350 to, $600. And Annika, do you want to talk about the tax credit on that?
Yeah, we talked. Yeah, so there's up to $1,000 off. So 30% of your expenses from your electrician, as well as any hardware, up to $1,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And I was trying to find the PG&E and MCE rates during the day for electricity, because I'm like, your rate sounds pretty darn good. And, I'm, of course, at home at night, if you have a certain time of use charge, it's this complicated grid. You could maybe get it a little bit cheaper, maybe, but most people don't have that. And so I think that's and I was trying to compare, Chloe, maybe we'll get back to you. I was trying to compare to gas, because that's really what you should, I think people should be comparing to. So having the convenience of charging at work and that regular charging is excellent. It's really, really a great thing.
So out of respect for your time, it's 12:03. You're welcome to hop off, and we're around. If you guys have any more questions, we'll stick around as long as you have questions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Carlene, I have a question. Is it still true that you can't use a level 3 charger like twice in a row? Not on a Tesla, but like on other EVs.
I read something about that, but I don't really know the details. Are you saying like you didn't get enough charge?
No, I've heard that it's bad for the battery to use a level 3 charger more than one time. Like if you use a level 3 charger, then the next time you charge should be in level 2 or level 1, but that you shouldn't repeatedly charge on level 3. No, that's not a thing.
I want to double check that before I say no. I remember a while ago, I can't recall, and I really haven't heard. I remember seeing that one time passing a while ago that maybe was an issue, and then I've never seen it again. So I don't know. We always charge like level 3. Like we go on a trip, we charge multiple times level 3, and we've never seen any issue. But yeah, you should check that out.
So
Cool. I wanted to say that I'm really excited for my wife and I to get our first EV, where it's kind of a timing thing for us. We bought our Subaru Forester in early 2017. And then our second car, which is her daily driver, is a Camry with almost 200,000 miles. So we're really close to definitely replacing that, and we are going to go full EV because that's certainly the future. And so we're really excited for this. So thank you so much for all the information, and then I'm looking forward to these sort of programs that you guys are running. So this winter I'll be keeping an eye out and looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks so much, Cameron.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Bye.
Bye.
So you're going to run your promotion again in the spring. There's going to be a promotion starting in November, or the company that helps with buying the cars, there'll be another promotion in the spring.
That is our plan.
Okay.
I can guarantee it, but that is our plan. We're hoping to do this like sort of promotion twice a year. Just because it's, not everyone's ready to buy or lease a car in this 1 month that we can run this. So it's a little bit dependent upon, or it's very much dependent upon the inventory of the plug-in hybrids and the battery electric vehicles, because with COVID, it really disrupted things. And then the fact that already the manufacturers are not manufacturing that many of these compared to like their regular gas cars. So, but yeah, this is our second one. We had hoped to do one in this past spring, but with COVID, it just wasn't going to work out. But
and then as far as I'm assuming that the vast majority of EVs and hybrids are leases, right, as opposed to purchases. And I know you guys aren't in the business of selling cars, but do you have anything to say about lease versus purchase?
Annika, do you want to?
Well, I have a Tesla Model 3, and I bought a used Volkswagen e-Golf as well as our second car. We bought them both. I feel like there's enough value in those cars. I felt like there was enough value in those cars to buy them. Even in 5, 6 years, 10 years, I'll be happy to have those cars. So I would say with some of the cars, in the early days, people wanted to lease them because the technology was new. But right now the cars, like they're not having this like battery degradation issue. And a lot of these new cars that are out here available now have really fast charging, you know, so you can get like over 100 miles when you're on a road trip in 15 minutes. You know, the Tesla, I think like 120 miles in 15. I mean, it's fine for our lifestyle. So it really kind of depends on how much you're driving and like what, you know, if it would really annoy you to have to stop and charge, you know, like it's really about your lifestyle and how you feel about it. Carlene?
Yeah, I think also the, you know, people who can write off their car as a business expense, like independent contractors, leasing is great. If you were looking at something that had lower range, I would say, you know, if that's your only car, well, it's not because you live alone, you said, but you'd want a high range car. So we've only bought one car because of a high range, and then the others we've leased, partly because we just do this to help people. So I like to have the experience of all these vehicles. But yeah, it's really, the thing is you do not get the $7,500 tax credit if you lease. So buying can be.
Oh, I got it off the price of the car when I leased. Is that changed?
Well, so it depends, and it depends on the dealer. Like VW and BMW were taking it off the top, but then and Leaf, I think, as well.
Yeah, Nissan also takes it off the top, but the others are a little.
The others don't, and then some don't even get it. So it's very, it's kind of, you know, what you're up for to deal with. And I know those rules may be changing anyway, but.
And Christine, I have one more comment is if you are, you know, relying on the carpool lane, then I would lease it, because then, you know, you'll get a new sticker the next time you get a car, because it only lasts for 3 years.
And then my final piece of advice is that if you're looking at the Nissan Leaf, I would not buy that. I would, if that's like the car of choice, I would lease it. They had battery degradation issues in the beginning, and they didn't change their technology for how they kind of massage the batteries. So they haven't been having them more recently, but the cars haven't been on the road that long. So I just am always like, you know, I wouldn't buy a new Leaf just yet. Apparently they're going to change that technology of how they help the battery stay in that right temperature, that Goldilocks temperature. But yeah, I just, that's only one on the road that I'd be cautious about.
Great, thanks.
And I would just add to that, like if you do go on a lot of road trips, I probably would get a car that other than the Chevy Bolt, because it has a little bit, other cars have faster charging capabilities. But if you don't go on a lot of road trips, it's not really a big deal.
Great, thanks. I'm looking forward to getting more information. I will do it. It's just a question of when.
Yes.
That's great. Thanks for your commitment.
Yeah, our big thing is just like if you can avoid buying a new or leasing a new car, gas car, you know, if you can avoid, because just any new car on the road, bought or leased, is on the road for like 12 or 15 years. Right. So that's, you know, that's the main thing.
It seems criminal now to buy a gas car.
I know.
And I can't wait for the infrastructure for charging to get better. I feel like we don't have that many people on the call anymore, so I can say this, but I feel like that stressed me out a lot, because I have actually gone like several times, gone to places and they're taken. So then I don't even have the option of using what I see. And even though the app says it might be available, it's broken or it's not, or it's taken. And I drove to Sacramento and back in my e-Golf, and I was really stressed because I got to Sacramento. We were seeing Sac State with my daughter, and we plugged in, great, but it was a level 2. So I didn't actually fully get to my maximum charge by the time we left after a number of hours there. And then I was like driving and trying to figure out like where the charger was, and I found one like in a like a mall, but then they were taken. And then I found one in a Costco, but then the Costco wasn't next to the Costco, so we ended up walking like 20 minutes from the chargers that like said were near Costco. And I went to go like shop at Costco, but the actual chargers were not next to Costco. They were like across the freeway kind of thing.
Like,
Anyway, I've had some
like
issues.
what's the range of the Golf? Is that 80?
It's 150.
It's 150. Is it
125, right?
Mine goes up to sometimes I've gone up to 154 on a charge.
Probably it's probably the EPA rating is probably like one.
But normally it's like 140 something. Like it does go up to 150.
Some of the vehicles some are better and some are worse at estimating like what that range actually is. So like I noticed with our Kia Niro EV on the way to LA, it was probably the best performing, like what the range was and how far I traveled was accurate, which is really, really amazing. And but
that's also like an issue too. Like I went to Stinson Beach and I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to find a charger there. And then as I was going down the hill, I accumulated 30 miles. Yeah. And then I was like, I'm so confused. Like, I don't understand. Like, do I really have this? Do I not? Like, and then I'm thinking worst case scenario, like I'm going to call AAA and they'll come with a big battery to plug me in. Like I've never had that situation.
Yeah. Or they tell you or whatever. I think I feel like the sweet spot for batteries is, 200 miles or more.
Yeah.
And they're all coming out with that now. So it's a little bit of a problem because we have the installed base of vehicles. Like, I drove a Leaf for two different Leafs that were 85 and 110 or something. And, I remember going through that like, oh my gosh. So, I'm kind of like for new sales, like, so there's used, that's great. But for like new sales, like, get the ones that are over 200 or get a plug-in hybrid, because that in-between market of lower range and just battery electric.
Right.
And it's so much to, it makes me just think about like, I don't know. I almost wonder like if we should start webinars for EV drivers.
Yeah. Because I actually even now, I've had my EV for a year and a half and I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll never go back. But I'm like looking forward to the next purchase that I make that will have a higher range. Yeah. And when I go back and forth to work and like around town, no problem at all. It's just anytime we go anywhere past like my range of like going from San Rafael to Novato and back, or like just around town, I feel stressed. But then I'm not the type of person to get my tank down to zero either. So like I like to have like a big nice buffer. So that's a problem too.
Yeah. No, I think it's just overall, there's so much nuance. There's so many things. And I'm always so surprised when I speak with like my board or other people who drive electric, and they really don't charge out of the house, even on these higher range vehicles. And they're, they'll go, they'll be nervous. And I'm like, well, what do you, but, just even walking through, like, how do you use, PlugShare or a better route? I think I really would love for you, Chloe, to look at a better route. It's definitely a little more detailed, but it shows you how many bays there are, and it'll show you 5 alternatives, and it will give you the directions. And like I said, it's not the most user-friendly interface, I don't think, but I think it's okay.
I wrote it down because I was at like in the city one, I was stressed in the city because we went to like 4 different places and like they were all taken because it was like during the weekday, and like everybody who drives EV in the city, they had like plugged in. And finally went to like a Whole Foods, and then I didn't have reception down in their parking lot. So, and then there was something I couldn't figure out how to use the machine. And I'm like savvy with technology, and I couldn't figure out how to use the machine. And so I called them, and then I was like outside. I was like having to run back and forth between outside so I could have the reception to like down the ramp to my machine so I could like fix it. So I've definitely had some anxiety around, and I know it's going to change. I know there's going to be like so much more infrastructure.
It's going to change, but everybody has a lot of learning. Like we just have to, there's a lot to learn around this, right? And so, even if the infrastructure, it's still, until we really get
it's a different way of thinking, in a way that's like and like when I rented a car 2 weekends ago, and I haven't put gas in like a car in so long. And when I pulled up to like refill it at the end of the trip, I was like, oh, like this, I know.
Yes.
Like I totally felt like this is like, okay, I totally know how to do this.
It's so great because my daughter, who grew up driving electric, right? And so she'd go to Petaluma, she rides horses, or she went to Tahoe in the Nero. And, I'm like, well, did you look at the apps and how, where do you have to stop? And she's driving the Nero. And she's like, Mom, don't worry about it. She's like, I'll just look at the app and find somewhere. It's not a big deal. And so for her, and so she has no idea how, and then anyway, she's now driving at college our old plug-in, no, not just our regular Prius, because she doesn't have anywhere to plug in reliably, unfortunately. Anyway, she is just like, she had the FaceTime, like a year ago, FaceTime me at the gas station. We forgot to teach her how to pump gas. She's like, what are all these numbers and these different levels and where, like, how do I can't get the thing open. And anyway, and so she's just like, Mom, that's such an old person's problem, you guys that have problems with this. And I'm like, it's more than that.
I know. I was like so aware of even like enjoying the smell of the gas, like when I was bucking, because it's been so long since I'd done it. And I was like, oh, this is like a cozy blanket for me. Like, finally, like not,
Sorry, that's a bit much now. Okay.
No, I really am.
I gotta say, every time I drive past the gas station, I gloat.
I know, I do too. And
they're horrible.
Like,
they're environmental disasters. I can't wait until they start detoxing all these things around the country. There's so many of them. They're leaching damn petroleum into the ground. They're just awful.
Yeah, and then this Shell gas station just totally remodeled at the bottom of my hill. That like now it's this like massive, beautiful gas station, and they didn't even put any chargers and any EV chargers there.
That's weird because that was in the plan. They were supposed to put in 2 EV chargers there.
But they should do that at every gas station. There should be like a whole bank of EV chargers.
Can you send me that information? Because I got that.
Yeah, it's one that's like close to our house. Yeah.
Simon, do you live in Bryn?
What was
Petaluma?
Petaluma. Just where? Oh, well, Petaluma. Okay. So one of my other hats that I wear is that we a group of us. I think there's like 12 now. We call it the EV Squad, and we work on kind of foundational issues in Marin and Sonoma with driving electric. And anyway, I was gonna send you our agenda and see if you might be interested. We meet every 2 weeks, and we basically we've worked on everything from policy, like there's a policy that was passed by the state, AB 1236, that every city and town must adopt these rules for streamlining EV charging infrastructure, and saying that they can't deny charging infrastructure because of aesthetics and things like that. So we've really advanced that in Marin and Sonoma, getting all these places. We're now considering whether we want to lead a campaign to have ask our elected officials to place a moratorium on new gas stations being built in Marin and Sonoma.
That sounds cool.
Anyway, I have your email from this. I'll send you this. No worries if you don't have time or don't want to, but I just
sounds intriguing. I mean, I do think we're living in this weird transition period, and certainly if you look at some of the bullish people who are talking about the transformation of the entire energy sector, I mean, it's not inconceivable that within 10 years, all the car companies will be dead. The major car companies will all be dead within 10 years. And that's kind of hard to envisage unless you look at historical precedent and you look at what happened with the transfer. I mean, within 15 years, it went from horse and buggy to all cars. And there's some really dramatic pictures of the streets of San Francisco around the late 1800s and then around, I think, 1910 or 1915, where you have these enormous piles of horse manure everywhere and no cars and all these horses and buggies. And then 10, 15 years later, nothing, like one horse and buggy, and everything's all Model Ts and stuff like that. So I think it's going to happen. It might happen really fast, especially given the incentives with regards to climate change, which are dramatic. And I mean, assuming you have a rational government in place in major sort of centers of the world, then they're going to be aggressive because they have to be. There's no other way now. We have to be very aggressive. So I like this thing of saying, yeah, okay, this is looking to the future. Get rid of the damn petroleum things. I mean, the fossil fuel industry is going to not go quietly into the night. They're going to fight it. They have been fighting it. But to some extent, I think a lot of them see the writing on the wall because, like I think one of you was pointing out earlier, all these major car manufacturers are kind of doing cosmetic dips into the water with regards to EVs, and because the systematic changes which need to be made to their entire manufacturing industry are so vast and expensive that they would have to essentially repurpose their entire industrial complex to going to electric, and none of them are doing that. And the only one which is doing it is Tesla, and they're just so far ahead of everyone else now that it's hard to see that anyone else will be able to be even viable in 5 years, you know.
So I mean, I agree. I think there's, you know, I think it comes down to economics and political power. So the fossil fuel companies obviously have a certain amount of power, but they, with their stock prices dipping and them having all these, you know, to store all these reserves, et cetera, they're going to start to have a weakening of power. One of my concerns, like at a really big high level, is that Tesla's doing it right. And nobody else is really. I mean, the companies installing the charging infrastructure, we have a lot of things that we're challenging them on. I just got connected with do you know California Air Resources Board? You know, anyway, they're the Mary Nichols, the head of that. That's like really the most strong agency in California and the United States. She's battling with Trump over the fuel emission standards, the mileage standards. Anyway, they set basically so much policy, all the environmental policy, but the air policy, carbon. So I have a conversation with one of their board members to talk about the charging infrastructure in California, because it's not acceptable yet. You know, what Chloe goes through, these sorts of systems, and Tesla's the only one. And we can say, well, it's great that Tesla owns 80% of the market and they own the charging infrastructure, but ultimately you will be faced with, well, a risk from a security, national security perspective to have one car company be so dominant. You also have potential antitrust issues because if they, you know, and you could almost start to argue that right now with Tesla's infrastructure and that closed system. And, you know, you could see that developing as it goes. So I think that, you know, we'd really like to see, Elon Musk has said many times publicly that, yeah, for the right sort of deal, we'd be willing to open up our network because, you know, EVgo, Tesla chargers, like I can charge at EVgo, but not conversely. Anyway, there's a lot to be done that I think it's really essential that the policymakers get a direction that is clean and clear, because I'm concerned with Biden that they're saying 500,000 stations. Well, I've been traveling all over the place, just personally seeing like what are people experiencing. And, you know, I was infuriated. We were driving down to LA. We're in our Nero. The fellow next to me is in the Bolt, in a Chevy Bolt. He's trying to use an Electrify America charging station. They're really fast. It's great, but they have so many other issues, simple design engineering issues that shouldn't cause a problem for the consumer. They just did stupid things. Anyway, this fellow, he's this black man, probably 73 years old, with his wife. He's a Vietnam vet. He only had use of his right arm. He's like his left arm wasn't working, whatever. He's injured in the war. And it took him, you know, 7 or 8 minutes of unplugging and plugging and plugging and calling Electrify America. We're trying to help him with COVID, you know, and it was just, you know, like, this is not acceptable. We need to move from a early adopter market. We have Tesla up here, and that's fine. But then we need to move from an early adopter market into a market for all. And we have to have infrastructure that's sufficient, that's easy to use, that's so, you know, I feel like we're definitely can start making some waves. We are making some waves in this area. But we, you know, we're always looking for more people and more voices to come in. And
no, it's something I'm pretty passionate about, and I'm definitely, I mean, it's, you know, one of the things which we can do, I think, which is, I mean, certainly those of us who have been, reading around this area and educating ourselves, there's a lot of this information has to be translated to other people. And I think those of us who sort of have that kind of information, it's sort of incumbent upon us to do it, to try and change the trajectory of the future a little bit, and so I'd be happy to be involved with something like that.
So Simon, I live in Petaluma, you live in Petaluma. You should check out the Climate Action Commission, because I mean, they're looking at this stuff. There are new construction with multi-housing units in Petaluma. They're starting to require people to install electric chargers. Like, they're building all this new affordable housing. Anyway, I will send you links. You should bring some of that passion here to Petaluma, because, there's that gas station on the east side that was built close to going to be built close to a school. Safeway had this huge, like 16 pump thing. Citizens shut it down. So far it could come back, but it was close to a school, so people were freaking out about that. So there's actually stuff happening in your neighborhood. So just so you know, and there's charging stations down the hill from you at City Hall. So there's stuff happening.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this group is also Marin and Sonoma. So so basically, I mean, we only have a couple people from Sonoma. Kristen, I mean, anybody is welcome to join, I think. But it is really trying to collaborate about the what the issues are, like where we just started getting in deeper into the communities of concern, and we've been thinking about it, but like, how do we actually, what can we do to help bring them along, right? No matter where they live in this, we don't want to leave them with old, polluting, expensive gas cars, so what are those solutions, et cetera. But yeah, I think, and then taking local action, I think that's, it's really, to me, it's quite remarkable that, with not that much work, honestly, like going to a meeting or calling a representative, how much change we've been able to influence. It's kind of, because a lot of people just don't pay attention. And
well, I've got to get up. I got another call shortly, yeah. But I just wanted to bring up again the biking aspect of it, because these things are hand in hand. I mean, you look at countries like some of the Scandinavian countries, which just have almost like 50% of the population commuting by bike, and there's no reason we can't do that in the States. There really isn't. I know we've got a lot of problems in terms of like
laziness.
What's that?
Laziness.
E-bike, but I think
the global explosion of biking as a function of COVID has kind of like made me rethink that. And I think maybe before COVID you could say that, but people want to be environmentally sound, and they want to do it in a way which is affordable and impactful in their day-to-day lives. And it's hard to position any other motivation for the massive explosion in global bicycle sales other than people want to do something which helps them personally, but also is kind of good for the environment. And I don't know how else you marry that data with any other conclusion than that. And so we need to bring the discussion about bicycle ways, reducing. I mean, there's some really aggressive things you could do. I think New York is thinking of shutting off permanently some of its roads in Manhattan now for just biking and pedestrians, because they've had such a fantastic kind of outcome from COVID.
And New York City, I mean, it's amazing. Simon, I'm with you. I talk all the time about EVs. We actually work on e-bikes also for this Drive Clean Bay Area. But I lived in New York for 20 years, left about 15 years ago to come to California. And when we go back, I am absolutely astonished by the amount of protected bike lanes that are in Manhattan.
Yeah.
We ride our bikes all over the place now. Like I never, ever would have done that, 20 years ago.
Right.
So
Right.
it's,
I mean, having been hit by a car on a motorbike, I can attest to the fear of being hit by cars. And I'm always surprised, you know, on the trip to, you know, I don't know, what's the place where the whale watching occurs just south of here? Chloe, help me out. What is
Oh, Año Nuevo or no?
it? No.
Point Reyes?
Point Reyes. Yeah, sorry, Point
Oh.
Reyes. So Point Reyes, all the hardcore bicyclists which are going along those horrible roads, and apparently there's not been any fatalities. I actually checked into this, which I was very surprised by, because cars go very fast on there. But what about, you know, diverting some money to making proper bikeways on those routes and things like that? You know, that'll be awesome.
yeah. There, yes. And there's no end to the things that need to be done. And I'm just so convinced, you know, just little bits of coordinated effort, it really does make a huge difference in the outcome.
Well, we'll get in touch, and I'd love to help out if I can.
All right, awesome.
All right.
Hey, so Simon, there's the Petaluma is going through the general plan process. So the whole question of like bike paths, safe biking, there's like, they're going to look at the whole city and see how it's put together and what it needs. And, you know, and I'll send you links. You should check it out, because it's in your.
I will.
Yeah, because they're talking about closing Fifth Street to cars, so that's going to be dedicated.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd love that.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll be hearing from me.
Okay,
Thank you, and thank you, Chloe, for making this happen. It's great.
Yeah, thank you, Chloe.
Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, you all. Appreciate it.
I was really excited for this to happen, like in conjunction with our chargers, and it took so long for our chargers to get activated, but now it all feels like it's cohesive, like it makes sense. Like, here are these chargers and here's information you need. Now go.
Yeah, we started meeting about this like a year and a half ago, so it's great that it finally came.
Yeah, I gotta go. So thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Chloe, nice. Okay, great.
We're gone.
Well,
All
that
right.
was productive. I mean, there were definitely some people who don't drive electric yet, so that's good.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the only ones that you were seeing were the ones that were presenting, that were doing the EV spotlights. But there was I think there were like 30 people there, so I'll look at the stats and see, maybe like 20, maybe up to 25 or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, whatever. I've asked Brett for those statistics of like 20 folds once you install them. We'll see.
Yeah.
But you know, it's good. Like with a message from from the governor, and then, you know, chargers available, it's like makes it.
That's really great. So that was great, by the way, first of all. And it's great just to have all the engagement, and because really in some ways, I'm like, even if there were 5 people or whatever, you know, who drive electric, kind of shoring them up, you know, to then like get them engaged, to stay like, oh yeah, like that's kind of almost like train the trainer, you know. Anyway, one thing though, Rivian, just so you know, that pull-out thing was only like a demo custom thing that.
No, it's not. It's on their website.
They told me that it wasn't going to be.
Look, just go to the Rivian website right now.
I'll just dive.
It's on the front page of it.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Because when I saw it at the show, they were like, oh yeah, it was for overlanders or something. They built it special, and it was just like a capture your imagination. But maybe, I mean, if they built it in, that would be.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That whole setup is awesome. I don't have to talk about that. It's kind of a fun.
I think just maybe saying like
some models,
or it's an optional, because that tent also, my understanding was those were all like custom, you know, I don't even know. I mean, it'd be interesting. Maybe you can just ask. So I think it is cool. It'd be great to really show it. You know,
I used to have a slide with it.
Okay. Well, yeah, this
wanted me to get rid of it.
I know, because it's I think it's not standard. Like my understanding was they had that gear box, that gear tunnel, so you could put skis in it or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could ask them. My main thing is I don't want to make it seem like it's available or comes with it, or I just want to make sure it's actually available.
Yeah, I'm trying to like order one right now, and it's like it doesn't ask for any options. It's just a deposit. They don't have any of the specs really. Is our meeting at 1? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go.
So what I'm doing right now, because we have a presentation tomorrow. So what I'm doing right now is I'm changing up some of the slides for tomorrow based on the edits that you did today.
Okay.
But then for tomorrow, we don't have any EV drivers, like we haven't invited anybody. So you and I will just do our little spiel.
Is tomorrow like our own thing?
Yeah, it's our own thing. I can't check right now, but you know what? Let me stop.